in our headlines on this Wednesday, September 10th, here in South Korea. Seoul sends a chartered flight to the US to bring home some 300 South Korean workers who were shackled and detained by agents there following a raid at a Hyundai plant in Georgia. Meanwhile, the benchmark KOSPI closes trade on this Wednesday at 3,314.53, a new high on the back of the rally on Wall Street and prospects of greater policy support. And findings for August show employment standing at over 28.9 million, up by 166,000 jobs on year, but the trend remains mixed, depending on age and sector. We start with the latest related to the return of the South Korean workers detained in the US. Now, roughly an hour ago, the Foreign Ministry here announced that the workers will not be boarding the chartered flight home on Wednesday as planned. For details, I have our senior correspondent Oh Soo-young on the line. Soo-young, welcome. Now, I believe this announcement came quite abruptly.
That's right, Sonia, very abruptly indeed. The Foreign Ministry announced just an hour ago that 300 or so Koreans at the Immigration Detention Center in Georgia will not be able to depart by chartered flight on Wednesday local time. This is quote-unquote due to circumstances on the US side. Now, I just spoke to an official who indicated that South Korea, that is the government, its companies and the chartered airline involved, were fully preparing for a Wednesday departure. Now, local reports even indicate that the companies were helping the detainees ship their luggage to Korea separately. So for a reason that is unknown and undisclosed to us right now, the US is stalling the process. The ministry says negotiations, though, with Washington are ongoing. But given that it's quite early in the morning in the US, the issue is unlikely to be resolved before Foreign Minister Cho Hyun and Secretary of State Marco Rubio meet. So it looks like it's up to those two officials to quickly finalize the negotiations. However, even upon the detainees' release or whatever agreement that's reached, it seems difficult to determine when the next flight can be arranged, as it takes logistical preparation for the airline company in keeping with aviation safety standards and procedures.
Right, sounds quite complicated. Soo-young, what are the sticking points with regard to the negotiations?
Well, the Foreign Minister has said that he will ensure those detained are released on the condition of voluntary departure from the US and face no disadvantages upon re-entering the US, such as 5-year entry bans. According to the US State Department, Cho will meet his counterpart on Wednesday at the White House and is likely to prioritize the immediate need for release of the detainees. He said that he's also going to turn this crisis into an opportunity to improve visa tracks for Korean firms operating in the US. On Wednesday, Cho held a roundtable in D.C. with Korean representatives from LG, Hyundai, Samsung, POSCO, SK, among others. And these companies, they're calling for two main visa tracks. So first, a new E4 visa quota under the long-stalled Partner with Korea Act, which would allow up to 15,000 skilled Korean professionals to work in the U.S. each year. Second, the Korean firms would like higher approval rates for the E2 visas. Now, these are basically related to jobs created through foreign investment, and this would pertain to staff employed by Korean-invested plants in the United States. So corporate leaders, they've been stressing that without such dedicated visa programs, further large-scale investment in the U.S. And its manufacturing sector would be very difficult. Now, countries like Canada and Mexico, in comparison, they enjoy unlimited non-immigrant professional visas under the North America Free Trade Agreement. Australia has over 10,000 annual E3 visas. Singapore and Chile, they've secured thousands of H-1B1 visas through trade agreements. But South Korea uniquely has no such track. So we'll have to see what Cho and Rubio discuss and the outcome of their talks on Wednesday. But the stakes are high for both countries. Without structural administrative support for Korean professionals in key industrial sectors, it's hard to see investment in America as a feasible option for global businesses.
Right, I see. All right, Soo-young, thank you for that update, and do keep us posted. Moving on then, President Lee Jae-myung has unveiled the so-called Public Growth Fund to support key technologies, adding that Korea stands at a critical juncture in economic growth. Do take a listen.
오늘 말씀드리게 될 국민성장펀드는 정체된 우리 산업에 새롭게 활력을 불어넣을 것입니다. 그리고 국민과 정부와 경제계가 함께 대한민국 미래를 만드는 초석이 될 것으로 확신합니다.
The remarks were shared at a fundraising event here in Seoul earlier on this Wednesday to support industries deemed strategically important, including those of AI, robots and biotechnology. Organizers hope to raise some 150 trillion won, or slightly over $100 billion through public and private investments. Present at the event were officials from the Financial Services Commission and the CEOs of private companies such as SK and Celltrion. The benchmark KOSPI hit a new high on this Wednesday, with investors responding enthusiastically to the rally on Wall Street and more. Our correspondent Kim Do-yeon reports.
A new milestone for the nation's benchmark KOSPI on Wednesday as it hit a new intraday trading record of 3,317.77. This comes as it opened at 3,272.20 before climbing through the day. At around 2:30 p.m., the index hit the new record high, passing 3,316.08 set in June 2021. The index also surpassed its highest ever closing price set in July 2021 by closing at 3,314.53. Analysts say there are multiple factors for this, both external and domestic.
The primary external factor is that the U.S. stock market continues to hit all-time highs amid growing expectations for a Federal Reserve interest rate cut. Domestically, expectations have grown that the current threshold for large shareholders might be maintained.
The U.S. and Japan also both saw their stocks hit all-time highs on Tuesday amid hopes of rate cuts. And as for the changes for the large shareholder threshold, to further explain, recently the Lee Jae-myung administration has said the current 5 billion won threshold for being classed as a large shareholder will be lowered to 1 billion won. This caused concerns for many investors, but there are hopes that at President Lee Jae-myung's 100-day press conference on Thursday to reaffirm his KOSPI 5,000 pledge, he could suggest a possible reversal of the plan to lower the threshold. This also stirred up foreign investment on Wednesday. In addition, Korean tech stocks have benefited as the government has been emphasizing its desire to invest in artificial intelligence, and foreign IT companies who purchase Korean chips have been performing strongly.
Amid solid earnings from overseas companies like Oracle, the scope of gains expanded, centered on industries with high connectivity to them.
Following that sentiment, shares in chipmaker SK Hynix jumped over 5.5% to a record high, while Samsung Electronics also finished in positive territory. Security firms also saw strong gains on the back of the policy expectations, adding to the market's overall momentum. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, employment expanded by well over 100,000 for the third month in a row in August, but findings remain mixed depending on age and sector. Our Park Jun-han explains.
Employment in South Korea exhibited strong gains in August, with the employment rate hitting a record high for the month. According to Statistics Korea's monthly employment data released on Wednesday, August employment rate was 63.3%. This is 0.1 of a percentage point higher than the same month last year. The data indicated that the number of employed persons in August increased by 166,000 year-on-year to around 29 million. However, the growth pace has moderated from July's addition of 171,000 and the overall monthly average of 178,000 for the first 8 months of 2025. The services industry drove the gains, adding 484,000 new jobs for the month, led by a surge of 304,000 people added in the healthcare and social welfare sectors, due to growing demand for elderly care and public job programs. In contrast, the manufacturing sector extended its 14-month year-on-year decline, losing 61,000 jobs in August. The pace of the decline, however, has narrowed amid easing external risks following the U.S. tariff deal and improving exports. The construction sector shed 132,000 positions as it experienced its 16th consecutive month of a drop in the number of new hires due to a decrease in the number of completed new houses. An age breakdown revealed stark disparities in the number of new hires. Among those aged 60 and older, the number jumped by 401,000, while new hires for those aged 15 to 29 saw a 219,000 drop. Notably, the number of people in their 30s who were not actively seeking employment reached 328,000, an increase of 19,000 from a year earlier. This marks the highest August figure since relevant statistics began being compiled in 2003. The government pledged its commitment to foster youth-favored jobs through AI innovation and 30 flagship projects under its new economic strategy. It also said the second distribution of livelihood recovery consumption coupons, which is scheduled for September 22nd, will be made without delay. And measures to stabilize livelihoods during the Chuseok holiday will also be promptly prepared. Park Junan, Arirang News.
In other news, the main opposition People Power Party's floor leader Song On-seok urged the ruling party to place priority on people's livelihoods. Speaking at the National Assembly on Wednesday, Song shared the PPP's readiness to work with the Democratic Party under the framework of a consultative body to tackle issues related to livelihoods. Separately, he criticized the ruling party for pushing legislation unilaterally, pointing to the passage of contentious bills such as the pro-Labour bill. On prosecution reform, he said his party agrees on the need for change, but stressed that direction, not speed, is what matters, calling for bipartisan talks. There has been a stunning escalation in tensions in the Middle East as Israel launched an attack against Hamas's leadership in Qatar, an important US ally, that is, and a key mediator in ceasefire talks to end the violence in Gaza. Our Lee Sing-jae reports.
Israel carried out an airstrike on Tuesday, targeting senior Hamas leaders in Qatar. According to Hamas, the attack killed 6 of its members, none of whom were officials for the Palestinian militant group, who are set to discuss a ceasefire proposal by U.S. President Donald Trump in Doha. Al Jazeera reported more than 10 blasts, while Reuters reported multiple explosions being heard around 3:50 p.m. in a residential area in the Qatar district. The Israeli military confirmed it used precision weapons to minimize civilian casualties, while the Prime Minister's office stressed the strike was conducted independently and aimed at Hamas leadership. While senior Hamas figure Khalil al-Hayya is believed to have been the target, reports say he survived the attack. This marks the first time Israel has carried out a strike inside Qatar, a key mediator in the conflict since Hamas's October 2023 attack. In response, Qatar condemned the attack, calling it state terrorism.
The Israeli attack that took place today on Qatari soil, we cannot call it anything other than state terrorism practiced by someone like Netanyahu in the context of the systematic policies and his ongoing attempts that have destabilized regional security and stability.
Qatar's UN envoy called it a blatant violation of international law, while UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres also denounced this strike as a clear breach of Qatari sovereignty, urging all sides to pursue efforts toward a lasting ceasefire. Meanwhile, the White House on Tuesday said President Donald Trump feels very badly about Israel's strike on Hamas targets in Qatar.
The president views Qatar as a strong ally and friend of the United States and feels very badly about the location of this attack.
The White House added that Trump spoke to both Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and also the Emir of Qatar, assuring the Qatari leader that such a thing will not happen again on their soil. The latest strike threatens to derail Gaza ceasefire talks, as well as President Trump's effort to broker a negotiated end to the nearly 2-year conflict between Israel and Hamas. Lee Sing-jae, Arirang News.
Over in Nepal, Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli resigned on Tuesday local time following violent protests against the ban on social media. Protesters set fire to the homes of the president as well as the Prime Minister, and clashes between police and protesters left 19 people dead and more than 500 injured nationwide on Monday. The protest began last Friday when the government blocked access to 26 social media platforms, including YouTube, Facebook, Instagram and X because they were not registered with authorities. The government lifted the ban on Tuesday. Seoul is hosting its annual security forum, and this year defense officials and related pundits are highlighting the importance of communication to counter potential conflict. Our correspondent Kim Bo-kyung covers their remarks and more.
Confronting geopolitical challenges and building peace through cooperation. This is the theme of the 14th edition of the Seoul Defense Dialogue, the annual security forum hosted by South Korea's defense ministry. With the war in Ukraine still going on in Europe and with China aligning with Russia and North Korea, the need for cooperation to respond to these challenges is clear. Having invited around high-level defense officials and experts from around the world, the forum served as a venue to talk about how to counter those security challenges. As regional rivalries and economic fragmentation get worse, officials warned that the world could become increasingly divided. They emphasized the urgent need for concrete measures to address the threats that put global stability at risk. One key message was on the need for communication and mutual trust.
Keeping peace isn't just about having stronger military power. It's also important to build systems for mutual deterrence and trust.
We believe it's crucial to increase channels of communication and to reinforce the importance of face-to-face meetings like this one here and the conversations we're all having bilaterally in the room.
Holding major powers responsible for their actions that threaten peace and stability through institutions and framework was highlighted as well. And most of all, officials emphasized how the discussion on stability in the international order must be inclusive.
Our international order must be multilateral, built with the participation of middle powers, regional groupings, and small states alike. The rules of the road must reflect the interests of all, and not just the strongest.
In the world where interdependence can lead to vulnerability, coming up with real, pragmatic measures to challenge security issues could take some time. But pundits do agree such dialogue could be a start toward the process. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Also here in Seoul, we share with you a beautiful show that offers its audience the chance to craft a scented memory of its music performance. Our Pyun Ye-young was there.
On a Friday night in central Seoul, the sound of traditional Korean string instruments echoes through a Hanok courtyard. This marks the opening of a special performance series at Namsangol Hanok Village. The series is called Chiang, or Taste. Written two different ways in Hanja, it means both personal preference and to take scent, a clever play on words. Here, the audience members not only enjoy live music, but also create their own perfumes inspired by the performance.
Our concert series is about embracing different cultural tastes. From traditional gugak to classical and indie bands, we showcase a variety of performances. And through the fragrance-making experience, audience members can create and take home a scent that matches their own taste, a way of carrying their personal experience and individuality with them.
Opening the series is the gugak trio Trigger. The gentle yet strong melodies of the kayagum, komungo, and ajeng captivate the audience.
Traditional instruments are especially fitting in a Hanok setting. Performing with natural acoustics lets the audience hear the true sound of the instruments. We hope they can also feel the natural rhythm and subtle vibrations we share.
The performance doesn't stop when the music ends. Right behind me, audience members are now taking part in a scent-making workshop, capturing what they just heard and felt in a bottle.
Participants browse through a variety of scents before a perfume expert blends them into a fragrance, turning the concert into a lasting memory.
It was a magical experience, honestly, because I honestly felt like a young band that had his musicians playing for him. I only missed maybe like Macaulay to fully enjoy it, but it was mesmerizing. So as I was listening to the songs, the first one actually did remind me of a forest and kind of the rainy smell of it. So being able to encapsulate that experience in a perfume, which I will later use on myself, it's each time I put it on, I will be reminded of this, so it's great.
Taste features traditional Korean music throughout September before branching into jazz and classical music in October. The series runs every Friday until November 7th. 변예영, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. A Russian airstrike struck a village in eastern Ukraine during a pension distribution, killing at least 24 elderly civilians. On Tuesday morning, as residents in the Donetsk region village of Yarova gathered at a mobile post office for pension payouts, they were struck by a Russian glide bomb. The 24 people killed were mostly pensioners and local postal workers. 19 others were injured. President Volodymyr Zelensky condemned the strike as savage and urged Western and G20 leaders once again to increase pressure on Moscow through sanctions. This attack is part of a broader escalation of airstrikes on Ukrainian civilian hotspots. It follows the deadliest aerial assault on Kyiv just days earlier. French President Emmanuel Macron has appointed his defense minister, Sébastien Lecornu, as the nation's new prime minister, following the resignation of François Bayrou. The decision on Wednesday comes after Bayrou failed a confidence vote 24 hours earlier, ousting him from the position. Macron swiftly named 39-year-old Sébastien Lecornu as France's fifth prime minister in under 2 years. A longtime Macron loyalist and former defense chief, Lecornu will need to forge a cross-party consensus to pass a budget amid rising social unrest. Lecornu is expected to retain Macron's pro-business reform agenda, continuing tax cuts and pension adjustments, even as nationwide demonstrations loom. A grassroots movement called Bloc on 2, meaning Let's Block Everything, has planned anti-government protests across France, and authorities have deployed 80,000 police officers to maintain order. American tech company Apple unveiled the iPhone Air, its thinnest iPhone ever, on Wednesday at an annual product launch event. The new model is just 5.6 millimeters thick, featuring a high-density battery and a brand-new processor, and is priced at $999. Despite its ultra-slim titanium frame, the iPhone Air packs pro-level performance with an A19 Pro chip and a large 6.5-inch display, all while maintaining all-day battery life. CEO Tim Cook called the Air model a game-changer, saying that it was the most durable iPhone yet. The company also launched the iPhone 17 and iPhone 17 Pro, the latest upgrades to its flagship smartphones, featuring a brighter, more scratch-resistant screen. Pre-orders begin September 12th, with availability starting September 19th. New York Fashion Week officially begins this Thursday, September 11th, featuring established brands such as Coach, Michael Kors, and Calvin Klein, alongside a wave of emerging designers. However, the mood is cautious as the event unfolds against a shaky luxury backdrop, with top names such as Marc Jacobs and Ralph Lauren staging shows outside the official schedule, raising questions about the event's cohesion and prestige. Organizers are responding with reforms under the Council of Fashion Designers of America and the fashion event platform KFN, planning a network of 10 free venues within a 15-minute radius of each other to lower costs and encourage participation. The event will run until September 16th. 최지희, Arirang News.
Seoul had a clear autumn sky without any clouds today. The air was cool in the morning and evening, so it felt like autumn is on its way. However, the temperature rose quickly in the middle of the day. Many areas went above 30 degrees Celsius, including 32 degrees in Seoul and 31 degrees in Chuncheon. The lowest temperature in Seoul this morning was 18.4 degrees, falling below 20 degrees for the first time since late June. The temperature will rise to 32 degrees Celsius again during the day tomorrow as the daily temperature gap between highs and lows widens. Tomorrow, Seoul and Gwangju will start off at 20 degrees, Chuncheon at 16 degrees. Highs will rise up to 30 to 32 degrees in most parts of the country. It will start raining on the south coast and central parts of the country on Friday night, and the rain will spread across the country on Saturday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. Right, those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. As always, thank you for watching.
We are a well-known company in the field of road safety facility manufacturing. We operate the factory nationwide in Korea. To go beyond the demanding safety standards of the ages, we are Global Network, local, worldwide, the global small and strong company appointed by Korean government. We are KSI.
인식 시작합니다.
헤이 미러, 오늘의 운동 루틴 시작해줘.
네, 오늘의 운동 루틴을 시작하겠습니다. 레디, 고! 좀 더 앉아 보아요. 4, 3, 2, 1. 고생했어요.
We move. Annually, we invest more than 10% of our total revenues in research and development, and 15% in the R&D workforce. Main products: pneumatic cylinders, solenoid valves, hydraulic cylinders, air preparation units, and grippers, and all other products are manufactured through systematic management. KCC Precision.
South Korean and Japanese defense ministers sit down for talks earlier this week while North Korea concludes its final test of an advanced solid-fuel rocket engine that pundits say may change the strategic balance in East Asia. Hello and welcome to yet another edition of Press Perspective. It's Wednesday, September 10th here in Seoul. I'm Min Sun-hee. Tensions persist on the Korean Peninsula as North Korea remains defiant in its aggressive pursuit of weapons technology. We cover this and more today, and for that, I have Rui Valdez with Spanish news agency EFE Spain here in the studio. Rui, welcome back.
Nice to be here, Sun-hee.
I also have Chloe Bogno with French broadcaster France 24. Chloe, it's great to have you here.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here.
Rui, we will start with you. So let's begin with details of the meeting between South Korean and Japanese defense ministers here in the capital city back on Monday, I believe. What was shared and what makes this particular meeting, Rui, significant?
Yes, well, the significance of this meeting is that it was the first time the defense minister of Japan visits Seoul in 10 years. So this is another signal of the new approach that Lee administration is having towards Japan. Why I say a new approach? Because we need to remember Lee Jae-myung administration, it's a liberal administration from the Democratic Party, and there has always been let's say a more tense relationships between Japan and liberal administrations in South Korea. There has been a summit with Prime Minister Ishiba and other signals from Lee administration that this time was going to be a little bit different, that they were going to be more tolerant, and especially by many pundits, this closer relationship maybe it's not necessarily a choice by the administration, but it's also because of the circumstances of North Korea getting more advanced weapons and their closer relationship to Russia. So, well, being that said, the Japan defense ministers come and visit, and they still commit to the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. This has been reiterated many times in terms of their alliance with the U.S., and it now even becomes more significant because, as we saw last week during China's parade because of the end of World War II, we saw this very potent image of Kim Jong-un sitting right next to Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin, which many interpret as a new or as a strengthening of this alliance, or somehow a validation of Xi Jinping about North Korean policies in terms of the defense and probably the relationship with Russia. There's still some gray areas that we cannot say 100% that China is validating fully this new relationship, but at least it's pretty symbolic to have him next to him in this parade. Among other things, they explore cooperation in high-tech defense fields such as AI, and there is one thing that I think I should point out. The optimism regarding the relationship between Japan and South Korea with the new government of South Korea grew when, after the summit of President Lee and Prime Minister Ishiba. Nevertheless, Ishiba announced he's stepping down, and in Japan there is a new presence of what many say is an extreme right party, and it has a considerable power in parliament, which means that probably the new Prime Minister of Japan will have to attend or to deal with this new party that is promoting ideas that for sure are not in the interest of South Korea, like historical disputes and many other things. Still, maybe because of the circumstances of North Korea getting stronger, etc., maybe the new Prime Minister of Japan will not have a choice and they will maintain this relationship as it is, but it remains to be seen.
Right, indeed. Chloe, then, as Rui mentioned, the Japanese Prime Minister, that is Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, he announced his resignation this past Sunday, prompting quite a lot of speculation about the future of Seoul-Tokyo ties. What have you been hearing?
Yeah, so the presidential office of South Korea has been discussing the matter on Monday. What they've been saying is, in the past, as we just said, that the two countries have actually been able to discuss. President Lee Jae-myung and Prime Minister Ishiba have been able to discuss. They have reached what the presidential office called a broad consensus on building a future-oriented relationship. So they've been discussing quite a lot of subjects. I mean, this is nothing new, the fact that the diplomacy is still going on and they're trying to make sure that the links are mended. There is the idea that they are expecting to continue to have positive relationship with their neighbors, because right now President Lee Jae-myung has said quite a few times that the relationship with the US, with the United States and with Japan is quite important for South Korea. Then obviously the presidential office, they also added that they were not going to comment on Japan domestic politics. So on that point, they've been trying to show that they're quite optimistic and that it should continue like business as usual. We still know that there might be some tension. So as Rui just mentioned, there is the idea that we don't know who is going to succeed to Prime Minister Ishiba. There is a risk that if the successor is not at the same level of willing to commit to discussing with South Korea, the relationship obviously might be strained. And as Rui said, actually, the South Korean media have shown that the two frontrunners to replace Prime Minister Ishiba are leaning further right, so further away from mending a relationship with South Korea. We also know that there is still some tension going on. Even with Prime Minister Ishiba still being here, South Korea wants to boycott Japan's upcoming ceremony in Sado Mines because of the wartime forced labor of Korean over there, and the idea that Japan is lacking sincerity in honoring the victims. So we know that there are still especially historical points that are a big source of tension. And again, we also have from here in South Korea the idea that President Lee Jae-myung has been trying to open more to Japan, but he might be under pressure from the Democrat Party, well, some of them, to they be taking a tougher line on history with Japan. So we have to see if both sides were suddenly to be going further away from each other and standing more on their position, we might have a bit of more of a tense position. But as we saw for now, it's quite the optimistic approach that's been taken by the presidential office.
Right then, Rui, amid this fresh uncertainty over geopolitics, North Korea's Kim Jong-un reportedly oversaw that is, a final test of a new ICBM engine that's solid fuel-based. Could you tell us more about this latest test and its broader implications?
Right, yeah, well, it's a complex answer. First of all, what we should focus is that the KCNA, the state agency of North Korea, mentioned that this is the final test, which means for many pundits that probably we will get to see the new missile called Hwasong-20 in the parade next month because of the anniversary of the foundation of the ruling party of North Korea. At the same time, what we're seeing here is, well, many people would ask, well, what's new with this missile? Well, or this motor that will be applied to this new missile. The thing is that the new missile will have the capacity to strike multiple objectives at the same time. Already North Korea had the capacity to reach, with the previous models, Hwasong 19 and 18, the US continental territory. But this new missile will be harder to intercept, and as I say, be able to attack different objectives at the same time. So if it happens that there's a revelation in the parade of next month, and then other experts said that that would mean that maybe by the end of the year or early next year, we will see a test of this stronger missile, which Kim Jong-un also mentioned is part of this nuclear development of North Korea, and represents it would represent a big threat in the sense of the power of North Korea. That's one point. The second point is that some pundits also say that this missile could have been developed with Russia's cooperation because of the carbon fiber that it contains, that apparently is not hard to trade or it's not subject to sanctions as strong as other materials that could be used for military purposes. So they suspect that after this strengthening of relationships between Moscow and Pyongyang, Moscow could have provided either the material or the knowledge to develop the missile. Also, many people are interpreting this that Kim Jong-un is showing publicly or to the foreign media about this because he's trying to use it as a leverage for a potential meeting with Donald Trump. As we have all heard in the previous shows, Donald Trump is looking to meeting soon with the ruler of North Korea. If we talk about leverage, well, right now is a good moment for Kim Jong-un because he doesn't only have the missiles, he only has seemingly the support from Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin, at least to a level that we have never seen before, nor his predecessors. But at the same time, some pundits believe that there is still the question can be raised of why would North Korea want to meet US right now? Regardless, maybe they have more leverage or whatever we can say, but there's 2 points. North Korea keeps insisting that they will not denuclearize, and they have said this so many times, and now they have enough reasons not to do it, as watching how US acts, let's say, when bombing Iran or other reasons. And there was also pretty interesting article by the New York Times recently where they revealed that in 2019 there was an infiltration by Navy SEALs into North Korea. This operation failed. They were trying to spy on Kim Jong-un before the summit with Trump, which was in the first term, and they end up killing the U.S. soldiers end up killing 2 or 3 North Korean civilians, and then head back and cancel the operation. Probably this was already known by North Korea, but it is new that now it's public knowledge, right? Well, assuming that everything is true, the New York Times validated this with multiple sources, and even today, Yonhap mentioned that a source from the South Korean government, he never validated really the operation, but he said that there was some actions by South Korea, like a purge of spies and other things around those dates in February, before February 2019. So kind of saying, well, this could have been a reaction to that infiltration. And now that it's public, maybe North Korea has another reason to not meet with the US and say, well, look, everybody knows what you did to us. Maybe we will not acknowledge it, because acknowledging would mean that we will say that we are weak and we can let other countries infiltrate to our territory, but the public knows. We don't have to explain.
Right, there is one aspect shared by pundits as well, of course. Chloe, against this backdrop, Chinese leader Xi Jinping, he has reiterated his intentions to promote close cooperation between Beijing and Pyongyang. Could you give us some context behind these latest comments?
Yeah, so this comment was shared again by the North Korean state media, KCNA. It was actually a message from Xi Jinping to Kim Jong-un to congratulate him on the 77th anniversary of the founding of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. That's the official name of North Korea. What we can say is that Xi Jinping has been saying that he wants to promote friendship between the two socialist countries, the two comrades. We've seen it. I mean, again, Ruiso said it as well, that on the September 3rd, with the military parade in Beijing, we saw that there was a real will from Xi Jinping to be putting Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un on his sides, kind of showing that the three countries are allies. It might also be a political message against the United States, you know, like showing that they are making a stronger alliance against the United States. They've been kind of focusing very strongly on China. It was also said to have been a way to strengthen the alliance between China and North Korea, because it has been a bit frayed, a bit bristled by the closeness of Russia and North Korea recently. But North Korea still needs to get close to all of its allies, because they are still under quite a lot of international sanctions, especially on the economical side, and they do need all the help and all the alliance they could get for now. So this is probably what we can think of when we read the idea of a closer cooperation between the two countries.
Right, and speaking about Xi Jinping, Rui, the Chinese leader also spoke at an extraordinary session of BRICS, at a virtual session, that is a virtual summit that took place earlier this week. What exactly did he say, and what do his words tell us about the future of global trade, do you think?
Yes, Xi Jinping used the BRICS stage to send a clear message: resist US tariffs, keep borders open, and rally the global south. And this is quite intriguing, we can call it like that, because it's really another way to show how the world has changed. Now we have US promoting protectionism, and we have China, which is the most powerful socialist country, if you want to call it, saying that we should have an open world economy. So as a signal of that, and to, let's say, gather the trust of all the members of the BRICS, Xi Jinping also stated, or remind everybody, how this group represents nearly half of the world population. They have 30% of global output and 1/5 of global trade, meaning that they have a lot of leverage to fight against all these measures that the US is promoting, like the tariffs and even other types of blockages or attitudes against many of these countries, including India and Brazil. Recently, we also saw how India sent messages that they could get closer to China if the administration of Donald Trump keeps going against them. Brazil and India, just as an example, they faced up to 50% of tariffs on most products. They are clearly not happy on how Donald Trump administration has even tried to influence their local policy, like the example with former President Bolsonaro, et cetera, et cetera. So basically what President Xi promoted is that BRICS can serve as a counterweight platform against the intentions of the US. And probably what he wants to do is to either preserve or find a way to have supply chains that, or some kind of cooperation or regional cooperation that they can, make this bloc stronger against, or to protect at least temporary for these things. And what we still need to know is that this is all rhetorical still, but there's a lack of concrete mechanism of how this will work. But if you pay attention to all the recent news, at least signals or symbols that we have been seeing from China, I would take this seriously.
Right, and with regard to Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he chose to skip the virtual BRICS summit, but he was in Tianjin over a week ago to join the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit. What has been said about Modi's absence at the virtual BRICS summit, Chloe?
So what has been said is that it is kind of sending obviously a political message. As Rui explained, this this virtual meeting was supposed to discuss global trade tension because of the tariffs imposed by the US. So the problem for India is that right now they are trying to negotiate to kind of get it down because they are at 50%. It's one of the highest tariffs in the world. So it is a political move to try and get closer to the United States, to get on their good side. And obviously for Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he already came to Beijing also last week. So it could also already be questioned by the United States on which side are you. So this time, was it a will, were there a will to not upset the United States? That's what most pundits were actually saying. Also because things seems to be going better for India on that side of negotiation, just looking at, obviously, Donald Trump, because he said last week that there was absolutely nothing to worry about for United States and India relationship. He said that the two countries had, I'm quoting him, a special relationship. He called the Prime Minister Modi a great Prime Minister. So, you know, we know how Donald Trump works on that side. Obviously, it's always good to be on his good side, but it's hard for India because they still need to show support to the BRICS because they still have allies there. And as Rui was saying, when you look at the numbers, the BRICS are still a strong bloc to take into account. So it's a difficult position for India to try to not upset any of the two sides. So we'll see how it can go and maybe how it can play for India in the negotiation of the tariffs.
Right. And speaking about Mr. Trump, Rui, we have time for one more question. He recently renamed the Pentagon. He's calling it the Department of War. Could you tell us a bit about the reason behind the renaming and the response to it?
Right. Well, recently he renamed to Department of War, the Pentagon to Department of War, as a secondary title. Still, as we know, it's very common to use it, and it will involve changing the emblems, stationery, plaque signage, which won't be cheap. His argument is that he wants to show like a strength of U.S. in the sense of kind of in a nostalgic sense of the past victories like they have in the world wars, and this way people, or at least the White House would convey strength, readiness, and resolve. He even called that defense is too defensive, so that's why he's gonna change it. And you have to protect both offense and defense. That was more or less what he was arguing. The critics, they have been saying that this is kind of a contradiction because he has presented himself many times as a peacemaker, and many people think that he's even following to win the Nobel Peace Prize. So this will break this discourse. And of course, the part of the cost that I already mentioned. And look, I mean, what we know is that this could be just branding politics, or maybe it is a strategy, but many people would call it like that. He has been claiming to his voters that U.S. will regain this type of nostalgic idea of what superpower they used to be. But I wouldn't, or many pundits also, wouldn't believe 100% that this goes in line. And let me explain it a little bit better. Sometimes when somebody insists a lot in we're the strongest, we have the most power, maybe the signal is completely the opposite. Maybe what we are seeing is that there is so much a craving to use this rhetoric, because probably what is really happening is the whole opposite. Maybe we're seeing, that probably U.S. is not in their best moment.
All right, I suppose time will show, then time will tell us then. Well, that's all the time we have for this edition. So Rui, as always, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you, Sonia.
Chloe, thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you.
Right, that ends this edition of Press Perspective. We'll return same time tomorrow with more panel discussions. So join us then, and thank you for now.
자연을 이어온 우리의 지혜가 제천에서 다시 태어났어. 세대를 관통한 선조들의 건강 빅데이터. 빅데이터. 우리의 삶과 들에서 자란 천연물은 단순한 재료